Vince McMahon's legal peril, let's start there, at least in a public setting, is now down to one. That would be the Ring Boys lawsuit, which has him as one of the many defendants. And that one is likely to end up the way that all the other ones have, or will. Last week, let's back up a little bit here, came the news of the WWE shareholder lawsuit trial being canceled. It was scheduled to start last Monday, June 8th. And just a few days before, it was pulled from the calendar and canceled because the two sides were, and I believe they still are, in the process of reaching a settlement agreement in principle. I don't know if a formal settlement has been approved or reached yet, but if not, it seems like we're well on our way to that. So not a done deal just yet, and we're still waiting to find out about what that's going to look like, how much money the shareholders will actually get out of it. They were seeking as much as $950 million or so in damages, plus interest accrued, after alleging that the fix was in with the WWE sale to Endeavor 3 years ago, and that McMahon steered the outcome to his pal, his boy, Ari Emanuel, with the idea that he would be able to maintain some level of power in WWE. And he would have. He absolutely would have, were it not for the Janel Grant sex trafficking lawsuit that dropped like an atomic bomb in January of 2024. And it started really with the Wall Street Journal story in 2022. I have some news on that here in a little bit. But the Wall Street Journal story and news of all the non-disclosure agreements with various women and performers over the years, including one $7.5 million NDA with a female talent whose name has never been revealed. But these things, they don't happen, not in these numbers, unless this man is doing something that he should not be doing. And there are still people making excuses for this toxic sludge of a human being. Says a lot about them. But it was that story that led to him initially stepping aside until he decided to force his way back in. Then this lawsuit dropped, and it was the Janel Grant suit, and it was very disturbing. Right? They had a relationship. He got her a job in the company that she wasn't qualified for. She worked her way up the ranks in short order. And according to her, he basically used her as his personal sex toy and pimped her out to John Laurinaitis, who cheated on his then wife, who was being treated for a brain tumor. These are the men who held positions of power in WWE at that time. You know, we can complain about how soulless the product feels these days and high ticket prices and bad booking and bad creative and boring television. That's a far cry from sexual misconduct and some of the stuff that was going on behind the scenes at that time for years. Laurinaitis didn't even deny it. He just tried to pass himself off as a victim. The fucking troll that he is. And Vince stopped paying her. He was supposed to pay her a certain amount of money. He stopped paying what he had promised per the NDA that was signed, and that's what led to her filing suit. And doesn't make her claims any less true, by the way. I mean, the fact that she filed a lawsuit because he stopped paying doesn't make them any less true or false or anything. Those are two completely independent things. And it was always going to be an uphill climb for this woman to beat the big bad billion-dollar chairman in court, who has a hell of a lot more money to burn than she does. But she wanted to see this go to trial. That's what she kept saying. She wanted to go to trial. She doesn't want to go into private arbitration. That's what Vince was arguing for per the terms of the $3 million NDA that was signed. Her position was that the NDA was signed under duress and it should be invalidated so that this could go to trial and everything could be out in the open and in the public forum. Right? This is not a criminal case. So even if it was a criminal case, Vince has friends in very high places, okay? Birds of a feather flock together. This was never going to go anywhere anyway. But this is a civil case. So the worst that could have happened to him and could still happen to him is that he would be on the hook for a lot of money that he would have to pay her. She wanted a trial. He argued for arbitration, and the judge in the case was supposed to have made a decision this month about which one it would be. That was going to be the single most important decision in this trial. What does the judge decide? Does she have a valid argument to invalidate the NDA and we go to trial? Or does this go to private arbitration and nobody ever hears about this ever again? On Thursday, that all changed. Post Wrestling reported that the plaintiff and the defendant, so Janel Grant, Vince McMahon, and WWE, filed a joint motion in the U.S. District Court for the District of Connecticut requesting to continue their litigation in private arbitration, which is a big 180 from what Janel Grant had been asking the court for. And on Friday, Judge Sarah F. Russell granted the parties' joint motion. The judge is now requiring them to file a joint status report by July 10th. And if they have not reached an agreement by that date, they will have a hearing in August. And Brandon Thurston says he interprets the word agreement here as referring to the conditions of moving into arbitration, not necessarily reaching a settlement of the entire thing. The one-paragraph filing states that the parties are in active discussions regarding a potential agreement to arbitrate the dispute in confidential arbitration, which would render the defendant's motion to compel arbitration moot. The filing does not explain a reason for Grant's change in position regarding her willingness to take her dispute into a private forum. An attorney for Grant did not immediately respond to a request for comment. The parties had been scheduled to attend a hearing on June 16th, that's this Tuesday, to argue the issue as well as whether Grant would be allowed to obtain evidence from the defendants in support of her litigation of the arbitration question. So this is not a settlement, not yet anyway. This just means that they are taking this, very likely, into a private setting with an arbitrator, and they are not going to go through a public trial and all the drama that comes with that. It all started when Vince reneged from what he had promised to pay her. He paid out $1 million of the $3 million that her NDA stipulated. If he had done that, if he would have just continued to pay what he was supposed to pay, we wouldn't even be talking about this right now. Once he stopped payment, she sued him. And she claimed that she had no intention of settling and that this resignation from WWE, that this so-called resignation, which turned out to not really be all that genuine, but then he came back and then he sort of resigned again. But his resignation from WWE was not enough for her. She wanted justice. What changed all of a sudden? We don't know. I don't know what her financial arrangement is with her lawyers, but from what I remember reading, the firm that represents her typically takes these kinds of cases on a contingent fee basis, meaning they only get paid if they win the case or if they reach a settlement. Then they take a percentage of those funds. If she were to lose this case, she could walk away with nothing. And even if she doesn't have legal fees to pay off, and she very well might, she may be broke at this point for all we know. But I imagine that her lawyers would probably not be too thrilled about that if she lost and walked away with nothing. So for Vince and WWE, a trial would prove to be very embarrassing, right? That's the reason he fought so hard against it. It's disappointing. It's disappointing because, again, where there's rot to be found, I think it should be exposed for all the world to see, right? In as public a setting as possible. And if there are people who deserve to be dragged, then they should be dragged. She's had a change of heart. That's her decision, right? It is what it is. But it is disappointing that she has suddenly had a 180 on this whole thing. What's concerning is that if this thing is that much closer to being wrapped up, that makes it more likely that we see Vince McMahon back in WWE at some point. Remember, Ari Emanuel had no issue with Vince McMahon being there, even after all the Wall Street Journal stuff came out in 2022. Right? This was a big Wall Street Journal bombshell story, and then there were subsequent stories. Right? His reputation was already tarnished. Didn't stop Ari from having an issue with Vince. He wanted him there. It was contingent. The deal, according to Ari Emanuel on CNBC, was contingent on Vince being a part of it. Now, maybe he was playing 3D chess and really did not want him there, but he had to pretend that he did to get him to sell the company to him. Right? We're going to find out, because the entire reason they got rid of him in the first place, or asked him to step down, was because of this lawsuit. And if this lawsuit suddenly goes away, that means the one real obstacle to his return goes away. And I put nothing past these people, right? Bruce is still there. I always liked what Ronda Rousey said, right? So long as Bruce Pritchard is there, Vince McMahon has an in, because Bruce is basically Vince's avatar, right? Once this all comes to an end, anything is possible. I'm not saying he's going to be back in charge of creative. I'm just saying anything is possible. And that is a scary thought. Even scarier, that there are people out there, fans and ex-talents alike, who want him to come back, who think that he's the only one who can make the product great again. Yes, the 80-year-old octogenarian sex pest is the only man who can restore WWE to its former glory, its past creative glory. If you honestly believe that, then WWE is doomed. If you think he is the only savior for this company, they're doomed. Teddy Long did an interview with TMZ's Inside the Ring podcast this week, and he talked about the state of wrestling today. I want to read you just a portion of what Teddy had to say here, even though it will make you dumber for having heard it, but I'll read this anyway. He said, a lot of talent is out there now. Some guys are doing great, some guys are not. And it's based on the creative people, the people that are in charge of what you do out on that TV. That's how your career is based. You can go out there and do something one night and it will kill you. That's kill your whole career. And they know how to do that to people. A lot of guys that are in charge don't do it because you can do the job. They'll mess with you because they got the power. They know they can. So it's changing a little bit now, but I think what we got to do, we got to get Vince back so we can do this thing right and get the fans back on board. Oh my God. And on the possibility of Vince returning to wrestling, he said this: I don't think the chapter has ever closed with him. Like I said, I don't know what happened or any of that stuff, but in my knowing him, wrestling was his life. He loved this. This was his life. I had a chance to ride on the plane with him one night, and as soon as we took off, he talked about wrestling until we landed. And so he loves this. This is his life. I watched him at his 80th birthday party during the rehearsal. They had a band and some singers there, a choir, and they were rehearsing before they got ready to go. I saw him, and he had his headset on, and Kevin Dunn was there. Kevin has always been his right-hand man. He's looking at Kevin and saying, Kevin, get him over there. You know what I mean? He's doing his thing. He's at home. I looked at him and I'm like, this is him. This is what he does. You know, I can understand being transactional. Like, this person always treated me well, so therefore they're okay in my book. They're willing to overlook certain things because of that. His argument being, though, I don't know what happened or any of that stuff, is not a valid argument, right? Ignorance is not a valid argument. Just because Vince McMahon did right by Teddy Long does not mean that it's okay for him to be back in a position of power over other people. But this is who we're dealing with here. Now, he also said in this interview with TMZ, this is, again, Teddy Long says, I went to Vince's birthday. After the birthday party, Vince gave me this bust of his head. I have that. We could go see it right now because I have it in the room over there. No, he didn't give them out to everyone, but I'm not the only one that got one. I would consider that as my prized possession. Vince McMahon giving a bust of his head to someone is that person's most cherished possession in the world. Sounds like that's not the only thing that Teddy's been busting when it comes to Vince McMahon. But then you have JBL, who never met a boot that he didn't enjoy licking. The same guy who said ESPN should be giving WWE A-letter grades in their reviews, even if they don't actually believe they deserve them. So he chimed in on his podcast, or technically it's not even his podcast, it's Bruce Pritchard's podcast. But he chimed in the other day. I saw this. He was responding to news of the shareholders lawsuit heading towards a settlement. He said, I don't know what the settlement was. My dad used to always tell me a bad settlement is better than a good lawsuit any day of the week. And sometimes, you know, I've been around Vince a long time. Vince just gets out of things. Does he now? Do tell us more, John. He said sometimes it's not worth the trouble. These lawsuits, sometimes they're fishing. Sometimes there's some merit behind them. I don't know the veracity of any of the claims. I don't know the merit of the lawsuit itself. I want you to remember him saying that, okay? I don't know the merit of the lawsuit itself. But getting out of this is a really good thing for TKO. Ron, talking about Ron Simmons, and I used to joke that we would sue the company for $1 billion and settle for $100,000 just to pay off a house. That's essentially what these lawyers are doing. They're saying this company is worth so much money. Let's file a lawsuit, tie them up in court, and see if we can get lucky with a settlement. That's all these jackasses are doing. There are so many lawyers who tie things up in the corporate world. That certainly appears to be what this is. I just don't see any merit to it whatsoever. I hope these guys didn't get any money because this is such bullshit. I've seen Vince over the years pay people off when he felt there was no cause whatsoever just to get rid of them. I'm not talking about anything serious, maybe a dispute over a building or something, just a nuisance. It's a nuisance fee. So, and by the way, in the abstract, what he is saying is not untrue, right? There are a lot of shyster lawyers out there who will do that sort of thing. But I would like to recap very quickly for you that in this one quote, he goes from trying to pretend being the key word, to be unbiased by admitting, well, I don't know about the veracity of the claims or the merits of the lawsuit itself. I just don't know. To a minute later, saying that he sees no merit in it whatsoever and calling it all bullshit. I get some of the wrestlers from that era having brain damage, all the chair shots to the head they took, right, over a period of many years. It's understandable. I mean, you could throw him in there too. But what's Teddy's excuse? What don't they understand about this? This man became a liability to his own company, to where when they had acquired the company, TKO Endeavor, they had to put fine print in their SEC documents talking about what a liability Vince McMahon was to this company. All these people who pray for the return of Vince McMahon, it's like they forgot all the years of slop that he spoon-fed us. That, or they're stuck in a time warp and they still think it's the Attitude Era. This man is 80 years old. His best days were behind him 10 years ago. We do not need Vince McMahon back. If TKO ever wanted to replace Paul Levesque, or if you think his creative vision is too boring and safe, I don't disagree with you. But bringing back the old man, that is not the answer. But I do think it's inevitable that he is going to pop back up at some point in some capacity. This paves the way for that. It just feels like it's only a matter of time once he gets this settled, once and for all. The ring boy suit, the past bad press, none of that's going to matter to TKO. The only thing that could hold them back from doing stuff with Vince McMahon again would be if the sponsors spoke up. If the sponsors started to pull out, if the backlash, let's say on social media, was so fierce, that they tag sponsors and do all these things, that's the only thing that they would care about. That's the only thing that would matter to TKO. If there was some sort of sponsor backlash. And once this disappears from the public eye or it gets settled, I doubt very seriously that any of them are going to care. Now, interestingly, on her Instagram page that she opened a few months ago, Janel Grant posted a screenshot from a transcript of a deposition. There was deposition testimony given by Michelle McKenna, who was a former member of the WWE Board of Directors, where McKenna stated that she believes that Nick Khan was the person who leaked those anonymous emails to the Wall Street Journal, which is what put the whole series of events in motion that ultimately led to the Endeavor purchase and the formation of TKO. Now, that is just one person's opinion, but that she would say that under oath in a deposition, there must have been something about him that would make her think that there was at least a decent possibility that it was him. But we may never know for sure who leaked those emails.